text or to understand what you're reading or to understand your story. Kaden, what are some things that you do when you come to something you don't know?
You can sound it out, or you can just read a little bit before and like come back to the word and what makes sense there, like substitute.
Okay. Come back to it and think about what makes sense. I like that. Somebody else had their hand raised. Kel, what else do you do?
For that, I just didn't know what text.
Text means like the written words on the page, and that could be an article. It could be like it's the story that you're reading. That's some academic language I put in there instead of saying the story. It could be anything that you're reading. It could be a recipe. So text just means the written word on the page. Does that make sense? Yeah. Any other strategies you guys have, or things that you do, skills that you know you do probably every day that you don't even think about or you don't have words for? What else do you do when you come to something you don't know?
Sound it out.
Sound it out. Yeah, we got that. Good job. What else? So sound it out. Come back to it. Ask yourself what makes sense. Does anybody keep reading?
Yeah.
And then go back? Yeah, so you keep reading or read on, and then go back, right? Kathy, what do you want to say? Oh, ask for help. Excellent. Does anybody look at the pictures sometimes to see if what they're reading or the text that they're reading matches with the pictures and support it? Yeah. So as you're reading, every reader, the goal is to understand what you're reading, right? If you don't understand what you're reading, you gotta stop and start over or use the skills that you have. So that's called metacognition. Can you say that? Metacognition. You're thinking about what you're reading about. Can you say that again? I didn't hear you. I don't think I heard you at all. Let's try it. Metacognition. Can you say that?
Metacognition.
So cognition, that's like the cognitive part of your brain, or your thinking part of your brain. That means that you're thinking about what you're doing. You're being your own advocate for what you're reading. You're looking out for yourself, and you're like, hey, this doesn't make sense. I need to stop and do it again. What are the skills that I have? So, have you ever heard your teacher say, does it look right? Does it sound right? Or does it make sense? Those are that's basically what you're doing when you're looking and when you're reading and you're making sense of the text. We're going to focus on, does it make sense today? I'm going to read you a little bit of my story. And it's a story, I love unicorns, so I brought a story called The Little Lost Unicorn. I brought my helper, my unicorn today. And I have another unicorn book you guys are welcome to read. So I'm going to read you something, and I'm going to make some mistakes in it. And I want you to listen and see if it makes sense. And if it's not making sense, think about maybe what words would make more sense in the story. And then we'll look at the text together. So I'll read the first page to you so you can get a little idea of what the story's about. One beautiful morning, the sun rose golden over the hills and woke little Unicorn. It was a day for adventure. Mom, can I go out? He pleaded. If I set off now, I can explore the whole forest before it gets dark. That sounds nice, little one, his mother smiled, stroking his head. Have fun, but little Unicorn was already racing down the hill towards the forest. Don't rush into things, and don't worry, she added. The forest is full of unicorns looking out for you. The morning was buzzing with life. In every corner, there were the sounds of borrowing, scuffling, and nibbling. Little Unicorn chased some bright butterflies, pranking and shacking his mane. Uh-oh, what should I do? Keep reading? Was it making sense? I made some mistakes too. Some miscues, that's another word we're going to teach you. What an adventure I'll have today, he thought, and he whined for joy. Of course his or some miscues. I keep using that word, but miscues is a new word for me. Okay, so as I was reading this, what wasn't making sense? We went and we read on, and that still didn't help us make sense of the text. So what should I do?
We should stop when we come to something we don't know.
Stop when we come to something we don't know. Should we reread it? I want to ask for your help this time because I'm having some difficulty pronouncing these words. Maybe you can help me. I didn't pull all those sentences out where I made the miscues, but I pulled some of them. Let's read this together. The morning was buzzing with life. In every corner there were the sounds of
Borrowing.
oh, borrowing. Does that make sense? Sounds of, does borrowing make sense? Let's look at this word. What? Oh, burrowing. Does that make more sense? Burrowing? Because animals do what in the ground? They burrow. Okay. So we said borrowing instead of burrowing, and burrowing makes more sense. Here I said scuffling. Does that make sense? Does something scuffling? Let's look at this. Scuffle. Could be borrowing, suffocating. Does that make sense? No. This is a new word. This is a new word for me. Let's look at this. Scuffling. What does scuffling mean?
I think it means that you hide.
Could be. It's actually like when you scuffle with your feet. So would animals scuffle in the forest or kind of drag their feet along with their burrowing? Yeah, that's scuffling. But I read scuffling, so it didn't make sense, did it? Okay, let's try this one. And nibbling. What's nibbling? Like eating something. Does that make sense? Let's try and read this again. The sounds of burrowing, scuffling, and nibbling. Wow, we went back and we reread it. And now it makes more sense, doesn't it?
Sounds better.
And we sounded it out. It sounds better. We read on. We used all those skills. Let's read this next one. Little unicorn chased some bright butterflies. Here's where I said pranking. Does that make sense? Pranking? Oh, prancing. What does that mean, Peter? Prancing. How did you know that was prancing?
Because you put I just knew that P-R-A made crayon, and then you just put C.
That CI has a S. Does anybody know what prancing means? It's kind of like dancing, like a horse. They prance. Have you ever seen them, like on television or been at a parade and you kind of see them with their all four legs are kind of in unison and it's like a dance. But the word is prance. It's prance. And I also said something different here. I said shacking his mane. Would a horse shack his mane? What does that mean?
I think it means like wiggling like
Oh, he's wiggling, but what would sound more correct? What would make more sense? Do we shack our hair? What do we do?
Shake.
Oh, shake. Let's read this together. Little unicorn chased some bright butterflies, prancing and shaking his mane. Does that make more sense? Prancing. So he was like dancing, and Kel is shaking his mane, right with the story. So, what I want you to do today is pay attention to your reading. And if something doesn't make sense, what can you do?
did what we did there or something.
Tell your neighbors all the things that you can do when you're reading and come to something that doesn't make sense. Take a minute to talk to your neighbors. So Julio talked to them. Joshua, you can turn and talk. Do what, honey? I did. I brought my magazines. Julio, what are some things you can do? Can you tell Melinda? I think you told me yesterday some nice skills you have. Yeah? partner said what, hon?
My partner said what makes sense.
What
Keep
makes
on,
sense.
keep reading and going
Yeah.
back.
And that's the main thing, to think about, does it make sense? If it doesn't make sense, you stop and think, right? All right, so does anybody have any questions about what you're going to look for today in your reading? Kaden?
Mistakes?
Oh, well, not mistakes, but if you come to something that doesn't make sense, you're going to use your strategies.
Like try to remember
Yeah,
them.
try to remember them. Try to remember all the skills that you guys know. Sound it out, come back to it, ask yourself what makes sense, keep reading and go back, looking at your pictures.
I got a question.
Yes.
What happened if like it was really sound it out, but pretend that you picked what makes sense? So like I used the wrong strategy maybe.
Well,
How do you know if you picked the wrong strategy?
how do you know if you picked the right strategy? Well, that's a great question. Ultimately, your goal is to what? To make sense. So if the strategy you used didn't quite work and it still didn't make sense, what could you do?
Just use another one.
You just use another one. Genius. That's right. You just go through all the skills you have until it makes sense, huh? Because that's our goal. Make sure that that story you're reading or the text you're reading, whatever it is, sit up, sweetheart, makes sense to you. If it doesn't, you stop and think and try again, right? All right. Excellent job today. Wow, everybody's just so focused. I love it. Thank you very much. Go back to your seats.